Hi, beautiful people. Welcome to my podcast channel. My name is Chinyerima Olivia Jidofo Akpe, and I am a self-acceptance, self-awareness, self-care, self-love advocate. My job is to teach women how to love themselves in the way God made them and teach them how to become better versions of that person and put that person into a destiny-aligned purpose that enables them to be all that God has called them to be. I started this podcast with the need to share my journey as a woman and as a girl growing up, finding myself, finding God, healing myself from mother wounds, trauma, abandonment issues, neglect, whatever the issues are. I had to go on this journey to heal myself. So sharing this live journey on this podcast is also a way for me to show women that it's possible to rebuild yourself. And the whole essence of getting you to rebuild yourself is so that you can regrow, revive, and release what you're carrying. Because we all have potential within us, and it would be nice to give all of yourself before you leave the earth. So it is my exciting experiences that I want to share with you on how you can master yourself, become a wife even when you're single, run a business from a standpoint of purpose and spirituality, embrace life mastery, and become the all-round divine feminine that God created you to become. So journey with me on the girl journey, and as you journey with me, be free, be vulnerable, share your experiences in the comments, share these videos to people that you love, and feel free to send me a direct message. I promise you I will reply. Hello. Hi. My name is Chiara Olivia Jidofo Anape, and I am here with my beautiful self today to discuss the self mastery blueprint. Yes. So I know most people are going to be wondering, what is self mastery? What is the foundation of self mastery? Why should we even have self mastery? Why is it important for women to have self mastery, especially African women? The relationship between self mastery and personal success cannot be overemphasized. Your fulfillment, your impact, and how self mastery connects to your physical, your mental, your emotional, and your spiritual well being. We're going to be discussing all of this in this episode today on my podcast. And I'm actually kind of excited to actually discuss self mastery because it allows me to share my personal journey to self mastery. And self mastery actually is about knowing yourself, discovering yourself. And a lot of people would not come to discovering their fullest potential in this life because they never got across to or got to the point in their journey where they started to learn themselves. So we go to school and we're taught about certain subjects, we're taught topics, we're giving certain principles and precepts on how to solve problems. But most of these things are not things that we can use to solve real life issues. Self mastery is how you can live your life in a way that gives you peace, gives you joy, gives you that sense of fulfillment, allows you to pursue the things that you're passionate about. In my experience with self mastery, I would say that one of the things about that journey for me was having to go through self acceptance and then moving from self acceptance to self awareness and journeying from self awareness to self care and self love. I can't start to explain how difficult it was to accept myself. And because most of the acceptance we were taught growing up was, building acceptance in a way that people would be able to accept you based off of their, standards. And because we were raised in a society that had that societal conditioning that made you always think about how are people thinking about it was really difficult for me to accept myself just for me. It was difficult for me to accept myself just for me. I had to always consistently put other people starting from, and it starts from when you're a child, by the way. You're being coached to pay attention to every other person's opinion of yourself and every other person's, you know, acceptance of you, but you. And I remember this one example that actually shattered me. And it was the fact that every single time I was in a female relationship, and this wasn't in a relationship, romantic relationship with the opposite sex, this was regular friendships. And I realized that every single time I was in regular friendships like that, I would have this situation where the person would reject me. Like a woman that has no romantic affiliations with me whatsoever would reject me. And I had this one time where someone actually told me that, you know, they just couldn't be my friend because what was the thing that they had said? They said something about me not being on their level. And it was just things that at the time when I think about it now and I think about why I choose my friends. I don't choose people because I think they're on a particular level or they're on a level that is higher than my level and maybe they can assist me. I genuinely choose friends because we have things in common. We share similar values. We have same characteristics. Like our character might align, our values might align to a certain extent. Not because we're not twins, right? Even twins don't have the same characteristics. And that day, I think that was the most gut wrenching experience for me when it came to self acceptance. In fact, that was the day that I decided that I would only be friends with people that accepted me for who I was. So that was my journey to self acceptance, actually. Just loving myself the way I was and just accepting me for who I was and finding people who were either like me or were okay with me the way that I was. And AKA, that's your tribe. So once you've accepted yourself, you're one step closer to finding your tribe. So I went on that roadmap from self acceptance to self awareness, and self awareness was the time when I started to learn about prioritizing self care. Sorry, prioritizing mental awareness, not self care. Prioritizing mental awareness, prioritizing training my mind, feeding my mind, telling myself the right things, the right narrative. Because you see, with self awareness comes a high level of mental well being that we don't understand already exists in our space because of how we treat our mind. So we treat our mind like a refuse dump where we can just dump things. So self acceptance was the journey that led me to self awareness because the minute I accepted myself, I realized that there's certain things I didn't want to dump on myself. There's certain things I didn't want to consume. There's certain things I didn't want to deal with. Certain lies that we've been told as women and men, African men and women, that I chose consciously to not digest. And it was about self awareness, was about understanding what I, as a person, thought about certain things. What were my own thoughts? What were my thoughts telling me? And self awareness unlocks a level of spirituality that we'll explain as we go further. 'Cause I'm just giving a general, preamble. Self awareness, sorry, is something that when you understand it, you make the right choices because you're aware of who you are, because your spirit being appreciates that you're awakening mentally to the fact that I can be my own guidance system. Yes, from the time that you were in fact, sometimes that you were zero, you were an infant, till the time that you were maybe 18 and you had to go to college or university. Your parents told you how to think, taught you how to think. Some of the financial limiting beliefs that you have, some of the beliefs that you have that have stopped you from becoming who you're supposed to become, were taught to you by the people who are your primary educators, your parents. And they will only transfer knowledge that they have to you. It's left for you to get to a point in your own journey where you encounter self awareness and you become very particular about what you're teaching yourself. You now take your own education seriously. You decide, okay, this is what I want myself to believe. This is how I want myself to believe work should be. This is how I want myself to believe money should be made or money should be spent or money should be saved. And it shouldn't be from a lack perspective, but that's something that you have to do with self awareness. And then when it comes to self care, this is a very tricky one, especially for both men and women. When it comes to self care, women have a men, first of all, have a very labor approach to self care, while women have the approach to self care for women is about impressing others. And I think the first part to healthy knowledge or understanding of self care is getting to the realization that it's only somebody who has accepted themselves. Is aware of their body, aware of how their body functions, that would take the extra caution to care for it. And we'll explain how as we go on. And then if you're able to master self-care, then you happen to arrive at a junction called self-love. And self-love for me is like the end game of it all. Once you've arrived at self-love, then you can understand how to love other people, how to treat other people, how to talk to other people, how to be there for people who need you in the way they need you to be there for them. Because you now understand the precept of love your neighbor as yourself. It is very important for me that as we go on in this class and we have these discussions, that you judge and reflect in yourself. How is it possible for me to be in this place where I genuinely know who I am? I genuinely understand why I am here, and I know what I was created for. So I always tell people that, and this is an analogy that I love to use, and it's the fact that a hammer is called a hammer. But you see, the purpose of a hammer differs because of the person who is holding the hammer. If a carpenter is holding a hammer, it would do and serve, it's still called a hammer, but it will serve a different purpose if a plumber was holding same hammer. The way plumber will use the hammer will be different from how the carpenter would use the hammer. And I think that that's what self mastery is. Self mastery is about knowing that you might be called a woman, you might be called a man, you might be called a husband, you might be called a wife, you might be called a teacher, a doctor, a lawyer, engineer, a pharmacist. That's a calling. The part that people will miss out on that self mastery is about is understanding what is my purpose. And you can't get to understanding your purpose if you don't know who you are and why you were created, the purpose for which you were created, your identity and your purpose is, if I had a self mastery question, I would say self mastery is self acceptance plus self awareness plus self care plus self love, all in brackets multiplied by by identity, and plus your ability to define your purpose, finding purpose. So as we go on this journey, I hope that you find that. I pray that you find that. It's my joy and my intent to share my journey so that people like myself, people who are in my tribe, can find out why they are here. They can become masters of themselves. You know, it's about understanding that you're captain of your ship and the master of your faith. And you can't captain your ship, you can't master your faith if you don't have self mastery. You wouldn't literally know your left from your right if you don't know what you like, what you don't like. Why am I here? What am I designed for? It's almost like being a weapon and not knowing how to be used as a weapon. So most of you are you know how the Bible describes children and says that children are a quiver, children are bows or spares in the hands of the parents or something like that. And happy is he who has a quiver full of them. We'll just find the scripture, we'll add scripture here. But happy is he who has a quiver full of them. So imagine that every time you've been basically um compared to a bow and an arrow. So it's a weapon. And if you do not know, you have a child, but you can't adequately decipher. You have four children, but you can't decipher. These my four children. What weapons are these that I'm looking at? What is this child designed for? And how can I coach this child for what she or he is designed for? What specific goal or calling does this child have? And how can I help them to embrace it even better? So it's about understanding parenting from this fact that how you even parent a child in the earlier stages of their life would actually help them gain self-mastery when they become adults. You have a role to play too. You have a role to play, but you see, you can't teach a child self-mastery even as a parent if you don't start as an adult, a single adult, to understand who you are and why you are the way you are.